I welcome the chance to respond to the cult that puts their complaints in the form of a stalking, malicious gesture. I don't welcome their attention, but given that word about my views has gotten around and my condition was manufactured by them, I can hardly avoid saying something. There's a peculiar ellipse that exists between the so-called moral high ground bonded to the prurient interest of this faction. The Vietnam War was sufficiently questionable that you would think quite a few people would find it sad that the cast of the Broadway musical Hair have been implicated in the AIDS attack. The ellipse was somewhat inverted by the Broadway musical Hair. I was pre-pubescent when I was taken to see that. It was in my formative years. And the message was that morality and liberation was simply a matter of consent. The scientists of the Catholic Church in Pittsburgh went right to work with prodigies, truly intelligent minds among young women who were developed and eager to get going in their pubescence, who could recite every detail of the law and information about the law, and knew that I didn't have the slightest idea of what they were talking about. Dee Dee and Gail were prodigies. And then using them to play a role for the religious right, working with brainies like Jesse Ventura, who said morality can't be legislated. When it comes to children, sure it can be, it has to be. They refused to legislate morality. In fact, they went and attacked the heart of legislative morality through this social science gimmick. And they pretended to be working with Hair when what they were really after was a martial law society. Really, when you read about the whorehouse sit-in, that integration should be fair sexual access between the races. Well, it is, as long as it's consensual, at least in principle, in one reading of the principle. Certainly, I have always applauded interracial love. But the idea that women should be forced to serve one race or the other is absurd. And the use of an aggressive reading of the past to advocate for that sort of thing is a mockery of our attempts to make social progress. And while this is going on, we also see a lot of questions about in particular in Seattle, where there's high-rise developments for the poor, disproportionately displaced and disproportionately poor, black communities being developed in traditionally ethnic enclaves where there's a number of senior citizens. And people who know what needs to be done overlap with people who are capable of doing it, and they're often rivals when they need to work together. But there's a blind spot in ignoring the fact that cultural competency and the ability to address, for example, through youth courts who attend seminars and then go out and mingle, reconciliation between the cultures of the elderly Chinese and the young and aggressive black community. And they're aggressive in their own cause. I mean, it's not always bad to be aggressive. But the fear of crime and the hate crimes and so on that go on, that get instigated by the right, and certainly white bigots, has a blind spot in the fact that there's a hidden transcript that comes with all of this. In fact, COVID-19 was an answer of what exists in that hidden transcript. When you look at Tracy Chapman's military sociology on her first record, you know, the statistical dehumanization of a white. You can see that the hidden transcript, the blind spot, and the blank were all being carefully monitored and cultivated by this new right wing. And another thing that they're not talking about in the mainstream gazettes of the International District, which I call Chinatown. It's the same place. I certainly don't mean it to be exclusionary. It's just that having lived there 12 years, I know anybody's welcome there. Nobody has anything against the poor and the black there. Is that the climate change issue is being left out. And you know, if you look at the careful march of this brand of thinking, they anticipated climate change. They knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. You know, I've been struggling with the issue since the 70s. 10 years before that, people were struggling with the safety of cigarettes. The first Surgeon General's warnings began appearing in the mid-60s when hair came out. Almost as if flaunting, you know, warnings. They then have, from the same country, North Carolina, where Jesse Helms resisted these kinds of warnings and resisted the genocide treaty, the emergence of horseplay from the lips of Peep and Moral, which traces to a gang that had sexual massage chambers as therapy stations. And you're supposed to ignore this when they contract through Bully to sell their platform of Peep and More as part of the Virgin Fly Trap. So the Peep and Moral show that came out of the Carousel Club gets its most right-wing enthusiasm, not just from hair, but from Yoko Ono and the Warhol and the Beatles, who had suicide pilots in the AIDS attack, who claimed that John Lennon died. If you look at the details, as I have for 20 or 30 years, you see there's only one explanation for what really happened, and that's that he pulled a Houdini. When you look at it, that falls into place. When you don't look at it, you're at the mercy of it, and the details just don't make any sense. So you ignore the details because it's too demanding. People like Woody Allen, Reagan, Donald Trump, they put their heads together and they came up with the Houdini idea. And once you recognize the possibility that Pentagon Disney pulled this and CIA Hollywood pulled this, You then also can look at the evidence of prior indexing, such as that the idea that they were both celebrities who people envied when Reagan and Lennon were shot, ignoring completely that a deaf man was on the set of both issues, was promoted by Fenton Bresler. And Fenton is the name of the street that the National Association of the Deaf is on. So when you admit that the evidence shows that John Lennon pulled a Houdini, then everything falls into place. It's very easy to explain all of the paradoxes and ellipses and contradictions. It's very easy to explain. Yeah, but otherwise, you're left asking yourself, why are they helping the people who did it? And you get people are weird as a response. Well, Ono believed in plastic reality, so did that horrible Bowie. And they intoxicated people. It's all about intoxicating them and using inebriation. So the idea was really not that they were both celebrity and somebody envied them, but they were both fakes who pulled one off and sold it with celebrity inebriation. You know, that's where it stands. Peep and more on all.